I'd like to share my testimony. I'd like to share my story, and hopefully it will be a blessing to someone out there. So I was raised Adventist since birth, and I remember, running around in the 70s, and my mother was playing the Heritage Singers with the 8-track tapes and everything, and she was always playing Heritage Singers, and my parents were very, very good Adventists and took us to church every week, and we kept Sabbath, and we did all of those things growing up, all since birth through high school, basically. And it was nice. It was a good way to grow up. I didn't really have any problems with it until my teenage years. I started questioning things. And I knew from the 7th grade that I wanted to go to law school. So I was studying the Constitution. I was, studying law, wherever I could, the Supreme Court, everything else. And I was very much into that. And my goal was to get good grades and go to college and get good grades and go to law school. So that was my track. So I did that, and it was good. And that was my priority. And I remember, when I was 16 years old, I was sitting in church with my family, and we had the paper bulletins back there. They were blank on the back. And so anyway, we had a visiting pastor to our church who gave a Revelation sermon, a Revelation prophecy sermon. And I didn't believe it, and I said, no, this can never happen here in the United States. We have a Constitution, we have a First Amendment, we have the right to free exercise of religion. Any religion you choose, you can freely exercise, and our Constitution guarantees those rights. And, the Congress shall make no law respecting religion. They couldn't possibly pass a Sunday law. It can't happen. Can't happen in the United States. And plus we have freedom of speech guaranteed by the First Amendment, and the freedom to assemble, the right to free assembly. So I said, there's no way it can ever happen here. Can't do it. So I wrote out, while he was giving his sermon, I wrote out point by point on the back of the bulletin how this could never happen here, and all the constitutional arguments why this couldn't possibly happen here. And that was my struggle with. I knew the Bible. I knew everything about the Bible. I was called Bible girl in high school. I went to a public high school. My parents wanted to send me to academy, but I said, no, I'm going to law school. I need an education. And I didn't feel that Adventist schools provided a good, rigorous enough education, so I wanted to go to public school. I did go to public school, and I was goody two-shoes because of my Adventist upbringing. And that's what they thought of me. And I had an English class, and our English teacher, he was a wonderful teacher, and he was very thorough and very good. He would always finish their curriculum early, and we'd have days left over during the semester where we would do Trivial Pursuit, or he would play, Monty Python, the Holy Grail, or something like that. And there were some days where we were playing Trivial Pursuit, and the class was divided in half into 2 teams. My side of the room, my team, they didn't know the Bible, and they couldn't answer the Bible questions. But I could answer the Bible questions, and I knew every answer to every question of the Bible. I always got those right. So they would turn to me every time we got a Bible question, and I said, it's Gideon, just say Gideon. The answer's Gideon. Or whatever the answer was. I gave them the answer. So they named me Bible Girl in high school. So anyway, so I knew my Bible, and I didn't have a problem with it, but I had a problem with the Revelation prophecies. I didn't believe them. So anyway, I wanted to go away to college because I needed to get away from my brothers because they were a handful. And while I was living at home, it was my responsibility to supervise them and care for them. And I had enough. I was tearing my hair out having to deal with those 2. One was hyperactive and destroying things and bouncing off of walls, and the other one followed him just because he didn't know what else to do. So I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I'm never having children. They've ruined me forever having children. I never want to have kids. And my dad said, no, one day your biological clock's going to start ticking. And I said, nope, I was not installed with one. I'm never going to do it. So I didn't. And I still haven't. And so they ruined it for me. So anyway, I went away to college because I had to get away from them. They were driving me insane. So I went away to college and, I got to college and I was an Adventist kid growing up around Adventist friends, going to church school grades 1 through 8, except for, high school. Grades 1 through 8, I was in Adventist school. So I didn't really have friends that were from other religions. And I get to college and my roommates are all Catholic. And I'm like, Catholic? Why are you Catholic? And they didn't really know how to answer that. I guess they told me something about the catechisms or something. And I said, the Pope's the Antichrist, right? And they didn't like that very much. So we didn't have a lot of discussions about religion, but because I was away from home, I wanted to do my own thing. And I started not keeping Sabbath. I started doing my homework on the Sabbath instead, because then I felt like I was half keeping it, because I wasn't out partying with my friends on a Friday night. But I was doing my homework, and I was in my room where it was quiet. So I felt I was half keeping Sabbath, but eventually I just wasn't keeping Sabbath at all. And I remember once in college, my favorite band, my college was next to a large coliseum where big, large concerts would come. And my favorite band was coming to play on a Friday night at that coliseum. So I wanted to go, but I was tormented with guilt, and I didn't buy a ticket because I felt too guilty, but I figured, let me walk over to the Coliseum and see what happens. So I went over to the Coliseum, and it was very cold. It was winter on Long Island, and there was a scalper who had sold all his tickets but one. He couldn't get rid of this last ticket. So he gave it to me. He's like, here, you take it. So I took it, and I went inside, and it was a great seat. It was 10th row on the floor, and the band was great, but I could only stay for 2 songs. And I bought a T-shirt, and then I left because the guilt was just too much. But I still hadn't gone back to the church. I went away to law school and still hadn't gone back to the church. I was dating my fiance, who I eventually married, and then later divorced. But his family was not religious at all, so it was very easy to stay out of the church and not go to church. They were very, I wouldn't say they were atheistic, but they were just agnostic. They just, I had the idea then that there's so many different religions, and they're all fighting with one another, and every religion thinks they're the right religion. Every one of the religions I felt had this arrogance that they were the correct religion, and no other religion was right. Every other one was wrong. And I'm like, well, you can't have one right religion and them all be wrong. I just felt they were all arrogant and not humble. So anyway, that was what I believed. And I graduated from law school. I got a great job as a lawyer, was practicing law in the city all the time, traveling in by train and subway and everything. And I enjoyed that very much. And that was great. But then I got divorced. Then I was on my own. And that was fine. I still wasn't in the church. And I retired from the practice of law to trade the financial markets, and I really enjoyed that, and I still enjoy that. That is wonderful. And so I was living in New Jersey, and it was 2019 and the end of 2019, and the pandemic hit, and everything was locked down. And I was like, this is wrong. This should not be happening. This is going to destroy our economy. This is going to ruin small business. How many small businesses are going to fail because they're locked down? They can't possibly keep their doors open because the state locked them down, at least in New Jersey and in the Northeast. The lockdown was only supposed to be 2 weeks, but it ended up stretching on for months. And many businesses went out of business. And I was like, this is wrong. And the forced mask wearing was wrong. I was very against the forced mask wearing. I didn't want to wear a mask anywhere I went. but ended up having to do that to get groceries, or alcohol. When the pandemic hit, I was drinking a lot, because I was very unhappy with it. So I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what was happening. And everyone was calling me a conspiracy theorist. I don't understand this. What do you mean I'm a conspiracy theorist? I'm looking at this logically, and I'm analyzing all these studies and looking at all this scientific stuff. What do you mean I'm a conspiracy theorist? There's evidence for what I'm saying. But people in my family still think I'm a conspiracy theorist, and that's okay. I pray for them. But anyway, there was one thing that flipped a switch for me inside, and that was when churches were locked down. That's totally unconstitutional. No church should ever have stood for that. No church should have ever shut their doors, because they're so well protected by the Constitution. They should know their constitutional rights. They should never lock down. The state has no right to lock them down. The federal government has no right to lock them down. So, at any rate, that infuriated me, and I kept drinking. And then there was a small gym in New Jersey, in Belmar, New Jersey, called Attila's Gym. And they didn't want to lock down. They said no, they closed their doors for a little bit, but then when they, just to see what was really happening and to learn more about what we were being told, but then they reopened their gym to their members. And they said, we're not going to lock down. We believe that exercise is good for health, and this is how we can keep people healthy, so we're going to stay open. And we're going to do it responsibly, and we're going to clean the machines, and you do social distancing and all that kind of thing. And they did, and they were on Tucker Carlson. The gym owners were on Tucker Carlson quite a bit. So I was following their story. The state really persecuted them, really tried to make an example of them. The state of New Jersey fined them. They were assessed criminal charges. They were, they didn't want to lock their doors, so the state would come and lock their doors, and then they took the doors off the hinges. They just took the doors off so that they could remain open and not be locked down. And it was just, the state just went after them so hard and persecuted them. The matter was in litigation, and while it was on appeal, the state took their money. The state just seized their bank accounts, and they woke up to a bank balance of zero. And that was their entire legal defense fund, over $170,000. And I was thinking, oh, I could see in that moment how that could happen to Christians. They could be persecuted by the state in that way. So I was like, well, it looks like it's on. It looks like, those Revelation prophecies, they're not that far away from happening. I could see Christians waking up to a bank balance of zero now. So I was like, okay, I got to get back to church again, and I got to start reading my Bible again, because it's on, game on. So I did, and I started doing Bible studies with my sister and her partner Ivan, and that was very good. And I was attending church on YouTube, and that was really good. And then I found my church that I attend now, and I love my church. So praise God. I know that a lot of people were praying for me. So God answers prayers. So keep praying. Keep praying for those people that you care about, because God will find a way to touch them.